Hello everyone and welcome to week 5 of our English composition class. Congratulations, you just finished week 4. You finished your first formal essay, the compare and contrast essay. I'm looking forward to reading those this week. I should have the grades done by the weekend. This week we're moving into a different mode of writing, another very common type of writing that you'll see in academic assignments. We're going to be talking about definition essays. And our next formal essay coming up in a few weeks is a definition essay. So it will be choosing to define an experience. We'll be talking more about that. And we're going to be reading some great definition essays this week and next week as well. So why define? Generally, you want to define to communicate precisely what you want to say. You see this in textbooks a lot where there's a key word or a phrase that an author wants you to know, something about the topic that's important. You can define to help with unfamiliar words or even words that are open to interpretation that you want to make sure the reader understands what interpretation you're going with. Now here's a great example for me of a definition paragraph. And this is a fun word to learn if you don't know it. Remember the little engine that could. That's a story about the tiny locomotive that hauled the train over the mountain when the big, rugged locomotives wouldn't. Remember how the little engine strained and heaved and chugged, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, until she reached the top of the mountain? That's a perfect example of a secular mantra in action. It's any word or group of words that helps you use your energy when you consciously repeat it to yourself. You must understand 2 qualities about secular mantras to be able to recognize one. Now, I love this paragraph because it's an engaging introduction. As a reader, it makes me think about, of course, this story, the little engine that could. I never knew that was a secular mantra, but it's a good example of one. We get different types of definitions in this paragraph. And then finally, the final sentence previews the supporting paragraphs. I bet you we could all guess where this paper is going. It's going to tell us the 2 qualities about secular mantras that we need to know. And so it's a great paragraph. There are 3 ways to define something. You have a synonym, a formal definition, and an extended definition. You know, a synonym is a word that means the same thing. A formal definition presents generally 2 things. The thing itself, the category that it's in, and then how it might be different from other things in that category. And then an extended definition is filled with examples and details that help to develop that definition. For this, we actually see a couple interesting techniques being used. First of all, it starts really with an example. This is all an example right here, the little engine that could. Then we go into the term itself, a secular mantra, and we get a formal definition of it, right? It's a word or group of words that helps you use your energy when you consciously repeat it to yourself. And then we get that roadmap of basically where the essay is going to go in this last sentence. So we start at the top here with an example, almost like an analogy. Then we get the term, and then we get a formal definition. Alright, now, let's see here. I think finally, just to get a little bit more about that extended definition topic, or a part of defining things, because that's what we're going to be doing when we write a definition essay, is we're going to be creating an extended definition. This is when you use many paragraphs or an entire essay to define a new or difficult term. Sometimes you can be rescuing a term from misconceptions, or letting the reader know what they need to consider. You also always want to think about what the reader might already know. And I think that paragraph, the little engine that could, it's a little bit of a gamble that everybody's going to know the little engine that could. Some people might read that and not know that story, but the writer is using that as an example to try to expand the definition. Sometimes definition essays try to convince the reader of their interpretation. In a couple weeks, we're going to be reading an essay called On Being Tent-Bound. It's by John Krakauer, and he discusses the experience of being tent-bound. He's, I think, in that essay trying to be funny and humorous, but also really make the reader think about some considerations they need to take into account when I get into a tent, and maybe being stuck in a tent for weeks at a time. But he definitely tries to convince readers of his interpretation, and sometimes writers do that. They will be a little more subjective than objective, and that's okay for a definition essay. Now, for extended definitions, you're going to be using examples, analogies, summaries, or events to help explain that term. Okay, that's what I got for you for definition essays. We're going to be reading one this week called What Happiness Is by Eduardo Porter, and he, as you can probably guess from the title, is trying to define the word happiness and looking at the different aspects of that quality of life. He uses research to do this, but he also uses some interesting anecdotes and examples. One in particular that he uses is about Abraham Lincoln, and he raises an interesting point about happiness using the story from Abraham Lincoln's life. So look out for that as you read. There's a question about that in the reading response that's due. You have a discussion assignment, which is about summaries and summarizing, and I posted a video about summaries that I think is good to watch. Summaries are a way to take a longer article or a longer journal piece or newspaper story and shrink it down into generally a paragraph. There are a few rules about summaries that you want to consider. One, you want to make sure it's focused and that it covers what it needs to in terms of what you're trying to summarize. You generally go in the same order that the original author went. So when you're summarizing information in 5 paragraphs, you want to kind of go in the same order that those 5 paragraphs were in. You want to make sure you're not copying language. And finally, generally with a summary, you're not giving an opinion. You're just presenting the information. And so you'll be doing this in a definition essay this week as well. All right. Best of luck. If you have any questions or concerns about week 5, please feel free to reach out. I hope you're doing well. And again, congratulations on getting the first essay done. Onward to essay 2. All right. Take care.